For 10 long years, I was my father's only caregiver. When he died last month, my sister Emily got the beautiful $950,000 mansion downtown. I received the old broken cottage by the woods. Looks like Dad knew who his favorite was, Emily smirked at the lawyer's office. But when I walked through that cottage door, I discovered something that would turn our worlds upside down. Hey everyone, this is Granny's voice, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Robert Chen, and at 60 years old I thought life had taught me everything about disappointment. The reading of Dad's will felt like a public execution. To my son Robert, I leave the woodland cottage at Pine Ridge, the lawyer announced in his boring voice. Emily couldn't hide her smile behind her expensive designer sunglasses. She had flown in from California just for this moment. Her first visit in 3 years. Well, little brother, she whispered as we left the building, I guess we know who Dad really loved. Her words cut deep because I had spent every weekend for a decade helping Dad with groceries, doctor visits, and keeping him company. Emily sent birthday cards twice a year if I was lucky. The drive to Pine Ridge took me through winding mountain roads I hadn't traveled since childhood. The cottage looked terrible from the outside. Broken windows, weeds everywhere, and paint peeling like old skin. Great, I muttered, pulling out the rusty key Dad had given me years ago. My reward for being the good son, a house that's falling apart. But the moment I pushed open that creaky door, my complaints stopped cold. Someone had been taking care of this place. The floors were clean and shiny. Nice furniture sat under protective covers. Fresh flowers decorated the kitchen table. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" But only heard my own echo bouncing off the walls. This wasn't the abandoned shack I expected. Everything looked loved and cared for. The living room had comfortable chairs, a big TV, and shelves full of books about gardening and cooking. In the main bedroom I found something that made my heart skip. A photo on the nightstand showed Dad smiling bigger than I'd seen in years. His arm was around a man about my age with kind eyes and graying hair. They both looked so happy together, like they were sharing the world's best secret. "Well, Dad," I said to the picture, "what else were you hiding from us?" I picked up the frame to look closer. The photo looked recent, maybe from last summer based on Dad's appearance. Suddenly I heard footsteps coming from the kitchen. My heart started beating fast. Someone was definitely here, and they felt comfortable enough to walk around like they owned the place. I quietly put the photo in my pocket and crept toward the kitchen, wondering who this person was and why they had keys to my cottage. Through the doorway I saw him, the man from the photograph. He was washing dishes at the sink and humming a gentle tune. Up close, he looked even kinder than in the picture, with silver hair and the confident way older people move when they've stopped worrying about what others think. Cleared my throat. He turned around and we stared at each other for what felt like forever. His brown eyes were warm but careful. "You must be Robert," he said finally, drying his hands on a kitchen towel with little birds on it. "I'm David Martinez." "David," I repeated his name slowly. "And you would be someone my father trusted very much." He hung the towel neatly on its hook. "I've been waiting for you to come." The calm way he said it, like he was expecting me for Sunday dinner instead of meeting his dead partner's son for the first time, made my jaw tighten. "Waiting for me. That's interesting because I had no idea you existed until right now." I sat down at the kitchen table without being invited. "So why don't you explain exactly what your relationship was with my father?" David looked at me for a long moment, then poured himself fresh coffee. "He didn't offer me any. Harold and I were partners. Best friends, and yes, more than friends if you want the complete truth." "For how long?" 8 years. Years. I did the math quickly. That meant this started right after Mom's funeral, when Emily and I thought Dad was just sad and lonely. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the stomach. "So you were his secret boyfriend while we thought he was grieving alone?" David's eyes flashed with anger. "I was the person who made him happy when your mother died and your sister was too busy with her fancy job to visit. And you?" He paused like he was choosing his words carefully. When you were trying to carry everything by yourself. Don't. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Don't you dare make this about me protecting him. I'm not making it about anything except the truth. David stayed perfectly calm, which somehow made everything worse. Your father was a good man in an impossible situation. He was watching his children struggle and feeling helpless, so he found comfort with me. I wanted to yell at him about honesty and family and how you don't just replace people when life gets hard. But something in his voice stopped me. This wasn't a man making excuses. This was someone telling me facts. Where does that leave me now? Yes. This is my house legally. David smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Actually, it's not. Excuse me. David walked to a kitchen drawer and pulled out a thick folder. He placed it on the table like someone playing their winning card in a poker game. Your father was sentimental and stubborn, but he wasn't careless with important papers. David opened the folder, showing me official documents covered in stamps and signatures. This cottage was put into a special trust 4 years ago. I'm the main owner now. I stared at the papers, trying to understand what he was telling me. But the will said I get the property at Pine Ridge. The land, yes, David pointed around the kitchen. But the house itself and everything in it belongs to the Pine Ridge Trust, which belongs to me. The truth hit me like a series of slaps to the face. Dad hadn't given me a valuable gift. He'd given me a piece of empty land with someone else's house on it. Property I couldn't sell or do anything with except pay taxes. You're telling me I inherited the dirt but not the building? That's right. I sat back down heavily. Emily's laughter echoed in my memory. Looks like Dad knew who his favorite was. If she only knew how much worse it really was. However, David continued, there's something else you need to know. Course there was. In my experience, when someone says there's more, it's never good news. Your father left specific letters. One for you, one for Emily. David pulled 2 sealed envelopes from the folder. He asked me to give them to you both after the will was read. I took the envelope with my name written in Dad's familiar handwriting. The paper felt thick and important. Whatever he wanted to say, it was going to be long. What about Emily's letter? That's between her and Harold, though I think her letter has some surprising information about her inheritance too. I tore open the envelope with shaking hands. The letter was 4 pages long, written in Dad's careful style. The first line made me gasp. My dear Robert, if you're reading this, you've met David and learned my secret. You're probably angry and feeling betrayed right now. Let me explain everything. I looked up at David, who was watching me carefully. Did you read this? Harold read parts to me, but not everything. I turned back to the letter, hearing Dad's voice in my mind as I read. What he told me next changed everything I thought I knew about our family. The downtown mansion isn't actually mine to give away. It belongs to your sister. I read that sentence 3 times to make sure I wasn't seeing things wrong. Then I read it out loud to make sure I wasn't going crazy. The downtown mansion isn't actually mine to give away. It belongs to your sister. David nodded seriously. Keep reading. 4 years ago, when your mother's hospital bills became too much, I was going to lose everything. The house was going to be taken by the bank. Emily offered to buy it from me quietly, letting me stay there until I died. She paid $950,000 for a house she already owned. Technically, the will just makes that ownership official. I put the letter down and stared at David. So Emily has been the legal owner of Dad's house for 4 years. Correct. And she let everyone think Dad was leaving it to her in his will. Also correct. I picked up the letter again, my hands shaking with something that wasn't sadness anymore. It was anger. But here's what your sister doesn't know and what you need to understand. Emily's purchase of the house wasn't completely legal. She used her position as my financial helper to basically sell the house to herself for less than it was worth. What she did is called elder financial abuse. The pieces started falling into place. Emily's big business success, Her insistence on handling Dad's money in his final years. Her convenient absence during his everyday care. I have proof of everything, the letter continued. Bank records, letters, evidence that she tricked me into signing papers I didn't fully understand. I stayed quiet because I needed her help and hoped she would eventually do the right thing. I looked at David. How much of this did you know? All of it. Harold and I talked many times about his children, about Emily's manipulation and your sacrifice. David refilled his coffee cup, then finally poured one for me. He felt terrible guilt about what Emily was doing and terrible sadness about the burden you carried alone. If he knew what she was doing, why didn't he stop her? Because by the time he understood what had happened, he needed both of you in different ways. Emily controlled his money. You took care of his daily needs. He was afraid that exposing Emily would destroy any chance of his family healing. He kept reading the letter. The cottage property is worth much more than anyone knows. I had it checked last year. The land alone is worth $1.3 million because of water rights and new business development nearby. But more importantly, there's something on the property that Emily doesn't know about. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the letter. In 1985, 2 years after your mother and I bought the cottage, I found something while fixing the foundation. I never told anyone, not even your mother, but I wrote everything down and kept the secret safe. Now it doesn't have to be secret anymore. The letter ended with specific directions to look under the loose wooden board in the bedroom closet. David watched me process this information with the patience of someone who'd had months to absorb these shocking revelations himself. You knew about whatever's hidden here. I knew Harold had discovered something valuable. I knew it was part of why he felt comfortable putting the cottage in the trust. He wanted to make sure you'd have something substantial, something that would make up for years of sacrifice. David set down his coffee cup. I don't know the exact details though. I walked to the bedroom, David following behind me. The closet was small, filled with men's clothes that still smelled like Dad's cologne. In the back corner I found the loose board he described. Underneath was a metal box sealed with old yellow tape. Inside the box were photographs, documents, and a notebook wrapped in plastic. The photographs showed the cottage being built, but they also showed something else. Old artifacts, pottery, tools, what looked like jewelry. Native American artifacts based on the beautiful patterns and craftsmanship. Dad's notebook documented everything carefully. Dates, descriptions, photographs of each piece exactly where he found it. He had discovered what looked like an important Native American village site, possibly hundreds of years old. My goodness, I whispered, flipping through pages of careful documentation. This could be worth millions, David finished. But more than that, it's historically important. Your father spent 38 years researching, documenting and protecting this site. He never exploited it because he felt it needed to be preserved properly. The final entry in the notebook was dated 3 months before Dad's death. I've contacted Dr. Jennifer Stone at the State Historical Society. She's agreed to survey the site after my death. Robert will need to work with her. This discovery belongs to history, but the finder's compensation should secure Robert's future. I sat on the bed, overwhelmed. In just 3 hours, I'd gone from inheriting a worthless shack to potentially being responsible for a major historical discovery. There's more, David said quietly. He handed me a business card, Dr. Jennifer Stone, State Historical Society. Someone had written tomorrow's date on the back and a time, 10 a.m. Your father arranged everything. Dr. Stone will be here tomorrow to begin the initial survey. If the site is as important as he believed, you'll receive payment as the landowner, plus a percentage of any museum purchases. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Hope you're enjoying your little shack, bro. Maybe you can turn it into a nice campground. LOL. I showed the message to David, who shook his head in disgust. Your sister has no idea what she just lost, does she? No, I said, looking around the cottage that suddenly felt different, charged with possibility and secrets. But she's about to find out because tomorrow when Dr. Stone arrives, everything will change. And Emily's perfect world is about to come crashing down in ways she can't possibly imagine. Dr. Jennifer Stone arrived at exactly 10 a.m., driving a muddy truck loaded with equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. She was older than I expected, maybe 50, with long gray hair and practical clothes that said she spent more time digging in dirt than sitting in offices. "Mr. Chen, I'm Jennifer Stone." Her handshake was strong, her eyes bright with excitement. "Your father was quite the amateur historian. His documentation is incredible." We walked the property together, David staying respectfully in the cottage. Dr. Stone used some kind of ground scanning device, taking readings and making notes on a tablet computer. "This is amazing," she said after about an hour. "The site appears much larger than what your father initially found. We're looking at what could be a significant pre-colonial settlement, possibly dating back 900 years. The dollar signs were practically flashing in my head, but I tried to stay calm. "What does that mean, practically speaking?" "Substantial payment for preserving history, potentially rewriting what we know about indigenous settlements in this region." She packed up her equipment. "I'll need to bring a full team next week, but based on these readings, I can tell you that your property rights as landowner will be worth considerable money." After she left, I called Emily. "Time to have some fun." "Robert." Her voice was fake sweet, the way it always got when she thought she'd won something. "How's your little cottage in the woods?" "Oh, it's full of surprises," I said, settling into one of David's comfortable chairs. "Actually, I'm calling because I need advice about selling property." The pause was delicious. "Selling already?" "Well, it turns out the cottage might be worth more than I thought. I had it appraised." "Not technically a lie. The land value alone is quite impressive." "How impressive?" Emily's voice had lost its sweetness. "Let's just say it might be worth more than Dad's downtown mansion." Another pause. Much longer this time. "That's impossible, Robert. That property is worthless." Well, the appraiser seemed to think differently. Something about water rights and development potential. I was enjoying this too much. Anyway, I should go. I have some calls to make about the sale. I hung up before she could respond. Emily showed up the next morning, driving her red sports car like she was being chased by police. I watched from the kitchen window as she parked crooked and marched to the front door with the determined walk of someone about to demand answers. "We need to talk," she announced when David opened the door. "Emily," I called from the kitchen. "How wonderful. Coffee." She stormed into the kitchen, her perfectly styled hair looking messy from the wind. "I want to know what kind of game you're playing." "Game?" I poured coffee into Dad's favorite mug, the one that said "World's Best Dad," that I'd given him 15 years ago. "I'm not playing games. I'm just exploring my options as a property owner. There's no way that dump is worth what you said yesterday." "Dump?" David's voice was ice cold. "This cottage has been lovingly cared for 8 years." Emily's eyes narrowed as she noticed David's protective tone. "And you are?" "David Martinez. I was your father's partner." "His what?" "Boyfriend," I clarified helpfully. "For 8 years. They were quite devoted to each other." Emily's face went through several interesting color changes. "That's impossible. Dad would never." "Never what?" "Find happiness after Mom died." I sat down across from her. "Or never keep secrets from his children." "This is ridiculous." Emily pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my real estate agent. We'll get a real appraisal." "Good idea." I leaned back in my chair. "Although you might want to wait until after the historical survey is complete." Emily froze. "Historical survey? Oh, didn't I mention? The state is sending a team to excavate what appears to be a significant Native American village on the property. Dad documented the whole thing before he died." I sipped my coffee. Turns out he was quite the amateur historian. "You're lying." David disappeared into the bedroom and returned with Dad's notebook, setting it on the table. Emily flipped through the pages, her face getting paler with each photograph. This can't be real. Dr. Stone from the State Historical Society seemed to think it was very real. She's bringing a full team next week. Emily's hands shook as she closed the notebook. I want half. Half of what? Whatever this is worth. I'm his daughter too. I laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. Emily, sweetie, you already got your half. You got the $950,000 mansion, remember? Sometimes the worst inheritance turns out to be the best gift you never knew you needed. And sometimes the sibling who gets everything loses more than they could ever imagine. The cottage taught me that secrets have a way of revealing themselves when the time is right. And justice, when it comes naturally, tastes sweeter than any inheritance ever could. Thanks for watching Granny's Voice. Don't forget to subscribe and share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters, and your story could be next.